Film Club.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of Film Club. I'm one of your hosts, Andy Harrison. With me, as always, it's Andy Donaldson.
Hello, guys. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Every week in Film Club, we invite you along to watch a film with us, but this week, we're going to take a look at American Graffiti.
Directed by, of all people, George Lucas, revisiting his home life. So we have a bunch of 17-year-olds around that age, just finishing high school, and they're driving around the town, picking up girls, going to diners, living in the kind of like 50s Americana feel. And it's about the relationships of a group of friends and their relationships, what they get up to that particular night. It feels like the Superbad of 1950s, but less comical and more kind of realistic.
Coming of age, they're about to go out into the world, and this is their last night together. Now, American Graffiti, I absolutely love. So
Of course you do.
I can't wait to find out what you thought about this.
The first 10 seconds, Rock Around the Clock, the song plays. Personally, I can't stand that song. I have my own personal reasons. So I came on, I was like, oh, for Christ's sake. And then it came into it, and you have like the dancing and stuff like that. You have like the kind of Americana. Personally, I'm not huge on 50s Americana. Like, it's something about it that, weirdly, it just annoys me. However, I love this film. The pacing's amazing. The character relationships are so deep and, like, enthralling. Just how, like, the work and the to and fro sort of thing. There's, like, there's quests by each character to do left, right, 1, 2, 3. And the dialogue is spot on. Relatively low budget for what it was. Some of it was actually improvised.
The budget is sub 1 million.
It returned 140 million.
Oh yeah, famously, American Graffiti is the film that made George Lucas a millionaire. That's a film that allowed him to eventually make that crazy, weird film that would become Star Wars.
Yeah.
But American Graffiti on its own is, I think, easily the most personal film that George Lucas has ever made. Like you said there, it's based on his youth. And the whole thing is set in Modesto, which is where George Lucas is from. Originally, when they were sort of like writing this, George Lucas had handed off the writing duties to someone else. And the first script that he got back, he described it as being sort of an exploitative film. It was a film that was a bit more ratcheted up. It has Steve and Laurie who run off together at the end to go and get married, and the kids are like playing chicken in the cars, because it's all sort of a Hollywoodized, dramatic version of what actually happened. And what George Lucas actually wanted to do was he wanted something that reflected the actual time, the actual period, the actual feeling of what it was like for him growing up in the 1960s, and that's how he sort of like boiled it all back down. I think it's really interesting that you picked up there on the dialogue, because Mr. George Lucas, Mr. Sand Gets Everywhere, the guy who notoriously can't write dialogue, in this film, the dialogue's fantastic.
It's so good. I could relate to them. And it's kind of what you want in a film, which is weird because it was obviously like based on George Lucas's kind of like upbringing. But you could relate to them as relationships that, are we going to go away when I got uni? Are we going to stick together? Or at least your friends had that kind of scenario. There was relationships where you're looking to go on the pull, essentially as a young lad. And it was really interesting as someone from again, we always reference this, someone from the northeast of England could relate to a topic that I'm not necessarily fond of, which is 50s Americana, and relate to it. And that was the most impressive thing.
He's writing it as a human experience.
Yeah.
And the whole 1950s cruiser culture is just a backdrop. That's how you really get these stories to connect with people. It's not dissimilar to what you would later do with Star Wars. It's sort of why something like The Walking Dead is so popular. It's not really about zombies, it's about characters with a zombie backdrop. The thing for me that makes American Graffiti something that I would just happily watch essentially on repeat, and I think it's blazingly obvious from the first couple of seconds, it is the aesthetics of it. First off, there's the visual aesthetics. There's, like you were saying there's the rock and roll cruising culture. There's everything everything being bathed in neon. It almost gets played a lot of the time in a similar way to how westerns do. There was definitely a version of this Americana that existed, but to this level, it never existed.
Well, everyone did have those kind of flashy cars in a kind of a modest town.
Exactly. Beyond that, you also get the aesthetic of the music. Now, that music, although you're saying there, doesn't speak to you. I think...
we had Chuck Berry and stuff, and that was, I love that kind of stuff.
Okay.
There was certain songs that came up.
Oh, now we're going to do the weather from the valleys and the mountaintops. gonna be hot, about 200 degrees in Merced, 400 degrees out in Fresno, and I know we're gonna have about 500 degrees up around.
He always has something in the soundtrack. There's always something going on in the audio in the background. It's not relentless in a way that is overbearing. Instead, it's relentless in a way that sort of makes it a soundtrack to somebody's summer. You know, like how when you're a kid and you have a soundtrack to your summer, and everybody's sort of in a monoculture way. That's everyone's sort of listening to the same thing. Like, doesn't matter which car you're in, everyone's sort of listening to Wolfman Jack, and to also then integrate that with the narrative of Wolfman Jack. I just thought was so
amazing.
Clever.
Yeah, it's such a good way to tie it together. And that scene where he comes in, he goes, I didn't realize it was actually Wolfman Jack portraying Wolfman Jack.
Yeah.
And he goes, yeah, I'm just the guy that does it, and I'll speak on behalf of him. I loved how he almost like made a persona within the film, but with himself. It was so like kind of quirky and unique, and it was like the guy that was kind of leading the night on, getting everyone through their night, you know, relating everyone to one another through whether in whatever car they're in, through the use of music. It reminded me a lot of Stand By Me.
Yeah, actually, in a similar sense, both Stand By Me and American Graffiti, they're not necessarily the most complex, interesting narrative structure you've ever seen, but what they do is maybe the most difficult thing to achieve in cinema, and that is give you a tone and to give you a feeling.
I particularly enjoyed the character of it was John. He's like kind of like arc. It was, I must admit, it got a bit weird towards the end. I mean, it's a kid, and he was just like, yeah, I like it. And I was like, she's 12. So I really enjoyed this kind of like.
I don't think he's saying he's interested in her.
Well,
I think he's just saying that he genuinely like likes her. I don't think he's saying love. I think he's saying like,
right, okay,
I've come to actually, you know, enjoy being in your presence.
And you got like the little, the smaller guy was called the Toad. They called him Charles Martin Smith. Terry, yeah. He was class. Because he was like, he just get put down. And he got his car nicked and he still won the girl. Then, of course, you have Richard Dreyfuss, Kurt, who was kind of like, I don't really know what I want to do. And then you have Ron Howard, who came on to direct stuff like A Beautiful Mind, which I didn't realize he was an actor before a director. Anyway, so Ron Howard with his kind of relationship with Laurie, Cindy Williams, and it's the way that is probably one of the most relatable things. Seeing that with whether myself or with friends, and seeing their relationship kind of like ups and downs, and like through the space of one night, you know, where are we going to go? Where's our future? Where are we going to go forward? And then that realization at the end of I'm going to stay home for a year. It was like that twist. He was trying to push Kurt to go away with him. And then it kind of swapped. And Kurt, you know, and the best part about Kurt is he could have met the girl that he was fascinated with all night, and he went up in the plane and saw her from above. I loved that. There
is nothing funnier in this film than when they occasionally leave in some of the flubs that happened on set.
Oh, like the moped scene.
So, yeah, famously, the moped scene that's right at the beginning of the film was never meant to happen.
It looks so natural, though.
He just drives up and, like, he smacks into the side of the building or he loses control or whatever.
Yeah, and it's the way he just looks at the other guys just go, for fuck's sake.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Yeah, and then, I didn't realise until after that they were, like, what, flubs? Like, they were, like, bad takes.
And that sort of feeds into the whole, like, ad-libbing of the film. You know, they were encouraged to improvise in this film. And that really shows in how natural it ends up being. Like later on, when Carol gets hit in the face with a water balloon, that wasn't meant to happen. But you know, the actress, she found it hilarious. She was, it was meant to it was meant to hit the window next to her, and she was supposed to be angry about it. But instead, she got smacked in the face and thought it was hysterical, so just went with it.
Mate, that brings a new life to that scene. It's got so much replayability in this film. It really has. Like, I want to watch it again already, and starting this film with Rock Around the Clock, I never thought I'd say that.
It's in no way generic. It has such a voice. It has such character about it. And for me, that holds so much wonderful, wonderful weight. I love it. So there is American Graffiti. You can let us know in the comments below what you thought of American Graffiti. Or you can hit us up on Twitter, as always. But Andy and I will be back once again next week, where we're going to take a look at Short Term 12.
Yeah, so this is Brie Larson's first leading role, I believe. So check it out and let us know what you think.
Till then, get watching.